The morning sun touched the old courthouse as Amara walked through the large wooden doors. The place was full of people. The sound of papers, quiet talks, and shoes on the floor made a strange kind of music. Amara was only 10 years old, but her eyes looked older than her years. Her small hands held a folded piece of paper close to her chest. Her dress was plain and her shoes were old, but her face carried a calm strength. Inside the courtroom, everything felt heavy. The big clock on the wall ticked slowly. The American flag hung behind the judge's chair. Men in dark suits whispered to one another, and a few people sat in the back rows waiting to see what would happen. Everyone was talking about the case of Malik Johnson, a quiet man who worked as a mechanic in the town. He was Amara's father, and he was accused of something he did not do. Malik sat at the table beside his lawyer. His face showed worry, but when he saw Amara entering the courtroom, his eyes softened. He gave her a small smile, one filled with love and sadness. He knew she should not be there, but he also knew she would not leave him alone in his darkest moment. Judge Morrison entered the room. He was an old man with gray hair and a serious face. He wore glasses and a black robe that made him look even more strict. Everyone stood as he walked to his seat. When he sat down, he looked around the courtroom before hitting his gavel once. The sound echoed like thunder. "This court is now in session," the judge said. "We are here for the case of the state versus Malik Johnson." The prosecutor stood. He was a tall man with sharp eyes. He spoke loudly as he pointed toward Malik. "Your Honor, the man sitting before you has been caught near the site of a robbery. Evidence shows he was involved and witnesses have seen him there. We must make sure justice is served." Malik's lawyer stood next. "Your Honor, my client is innocent. There is no solid proof he was involved. He was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. He has no record, no reason, and no connection to this crime. He is a father, a worker, and a respected man in his community." The judge nodded slowly. "We will hear the statements. The court will decide based on facts." Amara sat quietly on the bench, her feet barely touching the floor. She listened to every word, but she could not stay silent any longer. Her father looked tired, and she could see that no one really believed him. Her heart started to beat fast, and she felt something strong inside her. When the judge turned to the next witness, Amara stood up. Her voice broke the silence of the room. "Your Honor," she said clearly. Everyone turned toward her. The guards frowned, and people began to whisper. The judge looked surprised to see a small girl standing up in the courtroom. "Who are you, young lady?" he asked. "My name is Amara Johnson," she said. "Malik Johnson is my dad." The judge nodded slowly. "This is not the place for children to speak, Amara. Please take your seat." But Amara didn't sit down. She held her folded paper tighter. Her voice was calm but strong. "I need to say something important, Your Honor." The prosecutor rolled his eyes. "This is not the time for stories, girl. Sit down and let the adults handle this." Amara looked straight at the judge. "Free my dad and I'll heal you," she said. The words hung in the air. For a moment, no one spoke. Then laughter broke out in the courtroom. People shook their heads. Some whispered to each other. The prosecutor smiled in disbelief. "Heal him? What kind of nonsense is that?" The judge raised his hand, and the room went quiet again. He looked at Amara with curiosity. "Heal me? What do you mean by that? Amara?" Amara looked down for a moment, then lifted her eyes again. "You don't feel well, I can tell. You have pain right here," she said, pointing to her chest. "I can make it better, but I need you to free my dad first." Judge Morrison frowned slightly. His hand went to his chest almost without thinking. For weeks, he had been hiding his health problems from the court. He had chest pain and headaches that would not go away. It was strange that a young girl could notice that. "You cannot say such things in court," the prosecutor said loudly. "This is absurd." Amara stood her ground. "I'm not lying. I help people in my neighborhood when they are sick. I touch them and they feel better. I can help you too, Judge. Please, just let my dad go." The judge looked at her with mixed emotions. He wanted to laugh, but something about her voice made him pause. There was no fear, no trick in her eyes, only truth. Amara, he said softly. You are a brave girl, but the court cannot make decisions based on words like that. Your father's case depends on facts and evidence, not promises. Amara nodded. I understand, but I am not making a promise. I am telling you what I can do. You can test me if you want. The room became silent again. Some people smiled. Others watched closely. Even the guards near the door seemed curious. The prosecutor sighed and crossed his arms. This is a waste of time, Your Honor. Judge Morrison looked at the girl again. For the first time that morning, he felt a strange calm in his chest. If I let you speak, Amara, what will you do? He asked. She took a small step forward. I will show you. Just give me a chance. The judge looked around the courtroom. The lawyers were watching. The people were waiting. He could end this right away, but a small part of him wanted to see what she would do. Very well, he said finally. You may speak for a few minutes, but remember, this is still a court of law. Amara nodded. She walked slowly toward the front of the room. Her shoes made soft sounds on the floor. When she reached the judge's desk, she looked up at him. Her eyes were calm. Can I hold your hand for a moment, Your Honor? The prosecutor started to protest, but the judge raised his hand again. Let her, he said quietly. Amara reached out and placed her small hand over his. The room was silent. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the judge felt something unusual. The tightness in his chest softened, and the pain that had been sitting under his ribs since morning began to fade. His heart felt lighter. He pulled his hand back slowly. He looked at the girl with disbelief. His face changed. The crowd leaned forward, trying to understand what had just happened. Amara smiled gently. See, Your Honor, I told you I can help. Please don't keep my dad in jail. He didn't do anything wrong. The judge didn't speak right away. He just looked at her, then at Malik, then at his own hand. The courtroom, which had been full of laughter minutes ago, now sat in quiet amazement. The first spark of something strange had started that day, in the courtroom, something that would change everything for Amara, for her father, and for everyone who had seen it with their own eyes. The courtroom stayed quiet for a long moment after Amara placed her small hand on Judge Morrison's. The people inside the room were still trying to understand what had just happened. The judge sat still, his eyes moving from his hand to the little girl standing in front of him. For the first time in many months, he did not feel the heavy pressure in his chest. His heartbeat felt lighter and steadier. He cleared his throat and looked around. Court is in recess for 15 minutes, he said finally. The gavel came down once and the crowd began to whisper again. Amara stepped back from the bench and went to her father's side. Malik looked at her with pride and confusion. Amara, what did you do? He whispered. I just helped him, Papa, she said softly. He was hurting. I could feel it. Malik sighed and looked toward the judge who was speaking quietly with his clerk. You should not have come forward, my girl, he said gently. They will not understand. I had to, Amara said. No one believes you, but if they see what I can do, maybe they will listen. The lawyer beside Malik, a kind man named Mr. Harris, leaned closer. Your daughter is brave, he said quietly. But the court is not a place for such things. They will think it is a trick. The judge is a fair man, but he needs proof that makes sense in law. Amara nodded. Then I will give him proof. When the 15 minutes ended, the people returned to their seats. The judge looked at Amara again. Young lady, come forward, he said. Amara walked to the front, standing with her hands behind her back. The judge spoke carefully. Amara, what you did before the recess was unusual. I felt something, yes, but I do not understand it. Can you explain what you mean by healing? Amara looked thoughtful. When I was small, my mother used to say I was different. I could feel when people were sad or in pain. Sometimes when I touched them, they said they felt better. I do not know how it works, but I only want to help. I just want my dad back. The prosecutor laughed softly under his breath, and the sound carried across the courtroom. Your Honor, this child's story is touching, but this is a court of law, not a place for fairy tales, he said. The judge frowned slightly at the prosecutor. That will be enough, Mr. Cole, he said firmly. He turned back to Amara. Do you understand what your father is accused of? Yes, sir, Amara answered. They said he stole something, but he did not. My dad fixes cars. He works all day and helps people. He tells me never to take what is not ours. He is a good man." The judge watched her closely. Her voice was clear and honest. There was no fear in her eyes, only truth. The people in the courtroom were silent now. Even those who had laughed earlier were listening carefully. Mr. Cole, the prosecutor, adjusted his tie. "Your Honor, if the court allows, we should continue the case with real evidence," he said. "This story is wasting time." Judge Morrison did not answer right away. He touched his chest again without thinking. The calm feeling was still there. "Mr. Cole," he said, "I understand your concern, but this situation is not ordinary. I will give this child one chance to show what she means. If it is nonsense, we will continue with the case as normal. If not, we will consider her words." The courtroom filled with soft whispers again. No one could believe the judge was agreeing to let the child show her gift. Malik's lawyer gave a small nod to Amara. "Be careful," he whispered. Amara looked around the room. She saw many faces, some curious, some doubtful. "May I help someone else, Your Honor?" she asked. "So you can see it is real." The judge thought for a moment. "Very well," he said. "Who in this courtroom is willing to volunteer?" For a while, no one moved. Then an older woman sitting near the back stood up. She used a walking stick and moved slowly toward the front. "My knees have hurt for years," she said. "If this little one can help, I will not say no." Amara smiled warmly and waited until the woman sat on a chair near the front. "May I touch your knee?" she asked. The woman nodded. Amara placed her hands gently on the woman's knee and closed her eyes. The room went completely silent. After a few seconds, the woman gasped. "It feels warm," she said softly. "The pain is going away." She lifted her leg slowly, then again. Her eyes widened. "It doesn't hurt," she said. A sound of surprise spread through the courtroom. People whispered louder now, unable to hide their amazement. Even the prosecutor stared, his mouth slightly open. Judge Morrison leaned forward. "What did you feel, madam?" "It was like sunlight," the woman said, smiling. "Like something gentle and kind was fixing me from inside." Amara stood and took a step back. Her face looked calm but tired. "She is fine now," she said simply. The judge rubbed his chin. "This is remarkable," he said slowly. "But I must be careful. We cannot let feelings decide the case." Amara nodded. "I understand, Your Honor. But now you know I am telling the truth." The judge took off his glasses and cleaned them with a cloth. "I cannot deny that something unusual has happened," he said. "But freeing a man from jail is a serious matter. I need more than this. There must be a way to prove your father's innocence through the law." Amara looked down at her shoes. "Then let me help you find the truth," she said quietly. "Maybe I can show you something about what really happened." Her words made everyone pause again. The judge looked at her for a long time. "What do you mean?" he asked. Amara hesitated. "Sometimes when I touch things, I see what happened before. Not like pictures, but like memories. I do not control it. It just comes to me. Maybe if I touch something from the case, I can see what really happened." Mr. Cole crossed his arms. "Your Honor, this is too much. We cannot build a case on a child's imagination." But Judge Morrison raised his hand to stop him. "Mr. Cole, if she can show us something useful, it will not harm the case. Let her try." He turned to the bailiff. "Bring the bag that was found at the scene." The bailiff nodded and returned with a small brown bag inside a clear box. He placed it carefully on the table. "This was found near the robbery site," he said. Amara stepped closer. She looked at the box, then at the judge. "May I?" she asked. The judge nodded. "Go ahead." Amara placed her hand on the box. Her fingers rested against the surface and she closed her eyes again. The room went silent once more. Her breathing slowed. After a few moments, her hand trembled slightly. She opened her eyes wide with shock. "It wasn't my dad," she said softly. "It was someone else. A man with a red jacket. He dropped the bag and ran when he heard sirens. My dad wasn't even close. He just went there later when he heard people shouting." The crowd gasped again. The prosecutor frowned. "That information was never told to the public," he said. "No one knew about the red jacket." Judge Morrison looked at Amara carefully. "How did you know that?" "I saw it," she said. "When I touched the bag, the courtroom grew louder. Some people whispered that she must be gifted. Others said it was impossible. But the judge sat quietly thinking. The evidence had been weak, and now this girl was describing details that no one should have known. After a few minutes, the judge spoke again. "We will pause this trial until further review," he said. "I want to speak with both lawyers in my office." The gavel came down once more. Amara looked at her father and smiled. "See, Papa. He believes now," she whispered. Malik placed his hand over hers. "You are something special, my girl," he said softly. As they waited for the next part of the case, the people in the courtroom could not stop talking about the small girl who had faced a judge and made the whole room question what they believed was possible. The news about what happened in Judge Morrison's courtroom spread across the town by the end of the day. People talked in the streets, in shops, and even in the small park near the courthouse. Some said the girl was a miracle child. Some said it was just luck or a trick. But everyone agreed on one thing. Something strange and powerful had happened that morning. The next day, the courtroom was full again. Even more people came this time. Reporters tried to get inside, but the guards stopped them at the door. The air inside the room felt thick with curiosity and excitement. Everyone was waiting to see what the little girl would do next. Amara sat quietly beside her father. She held his hand and kept her eyes on the floor. Malik looked tired but calm. He had not slept much. He kept thinking about what his daughter had done yesterday. He still could not understand it, but he trusted her. He had always known she was special. Mr. Harris, the defense lawyer, leaned over and whispered, "Amara, are you ready for what comes next? The judge might test you again?" Amara nodded. "I am ready," she said softly. The sound of the gavel filled the room again. Judge Morrison entered, looking thoughtful and serious. His steps were slow, but his face was not as pale as it had been the day before. He sat down and looked around the courtroom. "Good morning," he said. "We are here to continue the case of the state versus Malik Johnson. But before we move forward, there are matters we must discuss." The judge turned his gaze toward Amara. "Young lady, your actions yesterday have caused much discussion. Some people believe you truly helped me and the woman who came forward. Others believe it was coincidence. I do not yet know what to think. But I would like to ask you to show us again what you can do." Amara stood up slowly. The entire room went quiet. "Yes, Your Honor," she said. "I can do it." The prosecutor, Mr. Cole, shook his head. "Your Honor, we cannot turn this courtroom into a show. This case is about robbery, not about magic." Judge Morrison looked at him firmly. "Mr. Cole, yesterday you called her claims nonsense. Yet what happened could not be easily explained. I will allow one more demonstration. After that, we will proceed with legal matters." Mr. Cole sighed and sat down. "As you wish, Your Honor." The judge looked around. "Is there anyone in this courtroom who suffers from illness or pain and is willing to come forward?" he asked. A man from the audience raised his hand. He was middle-aged, wearing a brown jacket, and walked with a slight limp. "My leg has hurt since I fell at work 3 years ago," he said. "If this little girl can help, I would be thankful." Amara gave a small nod. The man came forward and sat in the same chair that had been used yesterday. The room fell silent. Everyone watched as Amara walked toward him. "What is your name?" she asked kindly. "Thomas," the man said. "Okay, Mr. Thomas," Amara said. "I will try to help you." "Just close your eyes," the man nodded. Amara placed her small hands on his knee and closed her own eyes. The courtroom seemed to hold its breath. The light coming from the tall windows fell on her face, making her look almost like she was glowing. Minutes passed slowly. The judge watched carefully, and even Mr. Cole leaned forward, unable to look away. The man's face changed from pain to surprise. He opened his eyes suddenly and looked down at his leg. He moved it once, then again. His eyes filled with tears. "It doesn't hurt," he said softly. "I can move it." The crowd gasped. A wave of whispers ran through the room. Some people stood up to see better. Mr. Cole stood and pointed toward Amara. "This is not proof. She must be using some trick. Maybe the man only thinks he feels better." Judge Morrison raised his hand. "Mr. Cole, that is enough. I will decide what to think." He turned back to Amara. "How did you do that, child?" Amara looked up at him. "I don't know exactly. When someone is hurt, I feel their pain. Then I imagine it leaving them and going away. After that, they feel better." The judge nodded slowly. His voice was calm. "You have a gift, Amara, but this court must focus on justice. I need to understand how this connects to your father's case." Amara thought for a moment. "Your Honor, yesterday when I touched the bag from the crime scene, I saw what happened. I saw the man who dropped it. He was wearing a red jacket. My dad was not there. If I can touch other things from the case, maybe I can see more." The judge sat back, his eyes thoughtful. That is a bold claim, young lady. But since your vision yesterday mentioned something only the police knew, I am willing to let you try again. Mr. Cole started to protest but stopped when he saw the firm look in the judge's eyes. The judge turned to the bailiff. Bring the photographs from the night of the robbery. The bailiff walked out and came back carrying a folder. He handed it to the judge, who placed it carefully on the desk. Amara, these photos were taken from the scene. You may look at them. Amara nodded. She opened the folder slowly. There were pictures of a small grocery store, a broken glass door, and a shelf that had been knocked over. Her fingers touched one of the photos and she closed her eyes again. The room went silent once more. Amara's face tightened as if she could see something painful. He was scared, she whispered. The man in the red jacket? He was running. He took money but dropped the bag when he heard police cars. My dad came after trying to help the store owner, but then the police saw him and thought he was the thief. The judge listened carefully. Mr. Cole leaned toward the defense lawyer. That could be anyone, he said. It proves nothing. But before the lawyer could answer, Amara continued. There is another man. He was waiting outside on a black motorbike. He saw the man in red. He can tell you who it was. The judge looked up sharply. A motorbike? That was not in the report. Mr. Harris, the defense lawyer, frowned. Your Honor, I never heard of that either. Judge Morrison looked at the bailiff. Was there anyone near the store who mentioned a motorbike? The bailiff hesitated. There was one witness who said he heard a motorbike leaving quickly, but it was dark and no one saw it clearly. The judge leaned back. Interesting. This detail was never made public. The courtroom buzzed again with whispers. Amara stood quietly, her small hands folded in front of her. She looked at her father and smiled softly. Malik smiled back, though tears filled his eyes. Judge Morrison rubbed his forehead. This is not normal evidence, but it cannot be ignored. There are too many details she could not have known by chance. Mr. Cole looked uneasy. Your Honor, I still think this is some act. Maybe the girl overheard something. The judge shook his head. No one outside this court knew about the motorbike or the color of the thief's jacket. We will check the police files again. He looked at Amara. Young lady, you may have given us a new path to follow. If what you say is true, the real thief may still be free. Amara nodded quietly. He is, I saw his face. I do not know his name, but I can help find him. The judge looked at her with a mix of respect and disbelief. We will see. For now, the trial will pause again while we review this new information. The police will search for anyone who owns a red jacket and a black motorbike near the area. He hit the gavel once. Court is dismissed until tomorrow. As the people began to leave, Malik put his arm around his daughter. You did something amazing, Amara. I do not know how, but you made them listen. Amara smiled. We are closer now, Papa. I know they will see the truth soon. Outside the courthouse, people were still talking about the little girl who had healed strangers and described unseen moments from the past. Some said she was chosen by something higher. Others said it was impossible. But inside his chambers, Judge Morrison sat alone, staring at his hands. The pain in his chest had not returned. He felt a strange peace that he could not explain. For the first time in years, he believed that maybe, just maybe, there were things in this world that science and law could not easily explain. The next morning came with soft rain falling over the town. The courthouse looked quiet from the outside, but inside everyone was ready for another day that promised more surprises. Reporters stood outside under umbrellas, waiting to hear what would happen next in the case of Malik Johnson and his daughter, Amara. When Amara and her father entered, people looked at them with curiosity and respect. Some smiled at her while others whispered softly. Many had heard stories of her strange power. Some believed she was blessed while others thought it was impossible, but no one could deny that she had made something change in that courtroom. Amara held her father's hand tightly. Malik's heart was heavy, but he felt a small spark of hope growing inside him. The judge had promised to check the new clues Amara gave. She had said there was a man with a red jacket and a black motorbike. If that was true, maybe his name would finally be cleared. When the gavel struck again, silence filled the courtroom. Judge Morrison entered, looking calm but serious. His voice carried clearly through the room. This court is now in session. We will continue the case of Malik Johnson. Everyone waited as he looked down at his papers. Last evening, the police reviewed new information. They found camera footage from a shop near the robbery scene. In that footage, a man wearing a red jacket can be seen running away from the area. Moments later, a black motorbike leaves the street. The crowd began to murmur. The judge raised his hand for silence. We have not identified this person yet, but this evidence supports the description given by the child yesterday. Therefore, the court will allow more time to investigate this matter before reaching a decision. Amara smiled and looked at her father. Malik's eyes filled with tears. The hope he had almost lost was returning, but the judge was not finished. He turned to Amara and spoke gently. Young lady, you have helped this court in a way no one expected. But there is still much doubt and confusion. Some people believe what you do is real and others do not. I would like you to show one more time what you can do so there will be no question left. Amara stood up. Yes, Your Honor, she said softly. What do you want me to do? The judge looked around the room. I want you to help someone else today. Not to prove a trick, but to show us that your heart is true. He turned to the crowd. Is there anyone here who needs help? An older man stood from the back of the room. He was tall but thin, with pale skin and tired eyes. He leaned on a cane as he walked forward. Your Honor, my name is Mr. Benson. I have been sick for a long time. My back hurts so much that I can barely stand straight. If this young girl can help me, I will believe her with all my heart. Judge Morrison nodded. You may come forward, Mr. Benson. The room fell completely silent as the man slowly made his way to the front. He stood beside the judge's bench. Amara stepped closer and looked up at him kindly. Are you ready? She asked. Mr. Benson smiled weakly. I am ready, child. Amara placed her small hands on his back. She closed her eyes and took a slow breath. The crowd watched every move. The only sounds in the room were the soft rain outside and the steady ticking of the big clock on the wall. After a few moments, Mr. Benson's breathing changed. His body started to straighten little by little. He lifted his cane slowly, then let it fall to the floor. He stood tall without bending for the first time in years. His eyes widened and tears rolled down his cheeks. It's gone, he whispered. The pain is gone. The people in the courtroom gasped. A woman in the front row covered her mouth in shock. The judge looked amazed. Even the prosecutor, Mr. Cole, stood up in disbelief. Mr. Benson lifted his arms high and said loudly, This girl has done something no doctor could do. She is a blessing. Amara smiled gently but looked tired. Healing took her energy. She stepped back and looked at her father. I told you, Papa, she said softly. Good things are happening. The judge sat quietly for a moment, still surprised by what he had seen. I do not know how to explain what just happened, he said. But I cannot deny that this child has a gift. Mr. Cole frowned. Your Honor, with all respect, this may be real or it may not be. But it has nothing to do with whether the defendant is guilty. We still need to talk about the crime. Judge Morrison nodded. You are right, Mr. Cole. But this child has also helped us find new evidence. Without her, we might never have known about the man with the red jacket. For now, I believe her actions have helped bring us closer to the truth. He looked at Malik. Mr. Johnson, you are still under investigation, but I believe the truth is near. Until we find this man in the red jacket, you will remain free under the court's protection. Malik's eyes widened. He could not believe what he heard. His lawyer smiled. Thank you, Your Honor, Malik said in a shaky voice. Amara ran to her father and hugged him tightly. The courtroom was filled with quiet emotion. People smiled, and even the guards near the doors looked moved. Judge Morrison hit the gavel gently. Court is dismissed until further notice. As people began to leave, a few came up to Amara and thanked her. Some said she was a miracle from heaven. Others asked her to help them too. She only smiled and said, maybe someday. Right now, I just want to help my dad. Outside the courthouse, the rain had stopped. The air was cool and clean. Malik and Amara walked slowly down the steps side by side. Reporters tried to ask questions, but Malik held his daughter close and said nothing. When they reached the street, Amara stopped and looked up at the sky. Papa, do you think they will find the man soon? Malik nodded. Yes, my girl. They have to. The truth cannot hide forever. That night, Judge Morrison sat alone in his study. The memory of what happened in the courtroom would not leave his mind. He had seen many strange cases in his long career, but nothing like this. His hand went to his chest again. The pain that had troubled him for months was still gone. He looked at a picture of his late wife on the shelf. She healed me, he whispered. That little girl healed me. The next morning, new reports came from the police. They had found the man with the red jacket. He had been hiding in another town, and when they searched his house, they found the stolen money and the black motorbike. The judge called the lawyers at once. "Bring them in," he said. "We are ending this today." That afternoon, the courtroom was packed again. When Amara and her father arrived, the air was full of excitement. The judge smiled at them. "We have found the man responsible," he said. "He has confessed to the robbery. Malik Johnson, you are free." The courtroom filled with cheers. Malik held Amara tightly as tears ran down his face. The little girl who had faced a judge, healed strangers, and spoken the truth had done what no one thought possible. Judge Morrison looked at her with deep respect. "You have done more than help your father," he said. "You have reminded all of us that faith and kindness can still change the world." Amara smiled. "I only did what was right." As she and her father walked out into the sunlight, the crowd clapped and called her name. She waved once shyly, before disappearing with her father down the street. But everyone who saw her that day would remember the moment forever. They had seen a small girl change hearts, heal pain, and bring justice to her father with nothing but her courage and her love. After Malik was freed, life began to change for him and his daughter Amara. The small town that once looked at them with doubt now treated them with respect and kindness. People who had once crossed the street to avoid them now smiled and waved. Children whispered her name at school, calling her the girl who healed the judge. But for Amara, life still felt the same in many ways. She did not care about fame or praise. All she wanted was peace for her father and to live a normal life again. Malik felt proud of her every day. When he looked at his daughter, he saw strength and hope that he had never known before. One morning, as they sat on the porch of their small house, Malik said, "Amara, you did something I can never repay. You gave me my freedom. You gave me back my life," Amara smiled softly. "Papa, I only told the truth. The truth always wins when you keep believing in it." Malik nodded. "You were braver than all of us." As the days passed, letters began to arrive from all over the country. Some people asked for help with illnesses. Some asked her to pray for their families. Many simply thanked her for showing kindness and faith in such a dark world. Amara would sit with her father every evening and read the letters. Sometimes she would cry and sometimes she would smile. She said quietly, "Papa, maybe the world is not as cold as we think. Maybe people just need someone to remind them that love still matters." Malik agreed. But deep inside, he worried for her. The gift she carried was powerful, and he did not know what it might cost her. Every time she helped someone, she seemed a little weaker afterward. Like her strength flowed out of her into the people she healed. One night, as they sat together under the stars, Malik asked softly, "Amara, when you heal people, do you feel tired?" She looked up at the sky for a moment before answering, "Yes, Papa, it takes something from me, but I don't mind. It feels like giving away light. When I heal someone, their pain leaves and my heart feels calm. I think it's what I was meant to do." Malik's heart ached with both pride and fear. He wanted to protect her, but he also knew he could not stop her from following her path. Weeks later, a message came from the courthouse. Judge Morrison wanted to see them again. Malik was surprised, but Amara smiled as if she already knew why. When they reached the courthouse, the judge greeted them warmly. His face looked healthy and peaceful. He said, "Amara, you changed my life. Since that day, I have felt no pain. I have not told anyone, but the truth is you healed me too." Amara nodded softly. "I knew, Your Honor. I could see it when I touched Mr. Benson. The light reached you too." The judge looked amazed. "You are truly special. But I called you here for another reason. I want to give your father a new start. The court and the town have raised a fund to help you both build a better life. You have both suffered enough." Malik was speechless. "Your Honor, I don't know what to say." "Say yes," the judge said kindly. "Let this be the start of something new." Malik thanked him again and again. Amara smiled but stayed quiet. She seemed to be thinking deeply about something. As they walked home that evening, she said, "Papa, can we help others too?" "If people helped us, we should do the same." Malik smiled. "Yes, my girl. We will use what we have to bring good to others." And so they did. With the money they received, Malik opened a small center for people who needed food and clothes. Amara helped there every day after school. Sometimes sick people came hoping she could heal them. She never promised anything, but she always held their hands and whispered words of comfort. Some walked away feeling better. Others simply smiled through their pain, but all of them left with hope in their hearts. Soon, people began calling her Little Angel of Hope. But one winter evening, something unexpected happened. A child from the next town fell very ill. The doctors said there was nothing they could do. The boy's mother came to Amara's door crying, begging for help. Malik hesitated, worried about his daughter's strength. "Amara, you have helped so many already. You look tired. Maybe you should rest," but Amara shook her head. "Papa, if I can help one more person, I must try." They went to the small house where the boy lay weak and pale. Amara knelt beside him and held his tiny hand. The room was silent except for the sound of the cold wind outside. She closed her eyes and whispered softly, "You will be well. You have much life left in you." Her hands began to glow faintly with warmth. The boy's breathing grew steadier. His color returned, and soon he opened his eyes. His mother fell to her knees, thanking Amara again and again. But when Amara stood up, her legs shook. Malik caught her before she fell. "Amara," he said in fear, "you used too much of your strength." She smiled weakly. "It's all right, Papa. He needed it more than I did." That night she slept deeply, holding her father's hand. Malik sat beside her bed, whispering prayers of gratitude. By morning, she woke with a soft smile. "I'm fine, Papa," she said. "Don't worry." News of the healing spread fast, and soon people from far places came searching for her. Some wanted miracles, some wanted answers, but Amara stayed humble. She told everyone the same thing: the power is not mine. It belongs to love. Love can heal more than any hand. Even the judge visited one day to see how she was doing. He said, "You are teaching us all what it means to believe." Years later, Amara grew into a young woman known across the land for her kindness. She did not build a temple or take followers. Instead, she built a school for children who had no families. She taught them to read, write, and most importantly, to care for others. She would tell them stories about her father, who never stopped believing in her, and about the judge, who learned to see truth through kindness. When the judge became old, Amara visited him one last time. He was resting in his chair near a window. He smiled when he saw her. "Amara, you gave me a reason to believe in miracles." Amara held his hand and said, "You gave me a reason to believe in justice." The judge closed his eyes peacefully that night. People said that his face looked calm, as if he had fallen asleep smiling. Malik and Amara stood at his memorial quietly. Malik said, "He was a good man." "You changed his heart," Amara nodded. "Sometimes healing starts in the heart, not the body." As they walked home that evening, the sunset painted the sky gold and pink. The wind was gentle, carrying the smell of blooming flowers. Malik looked at his daughter and said, "Amara, you have healed many people, but you also healed the world's faith." Amara smiled and looked up at the sky. "Papa, maybe I was meant to remind people that love still works. Even when the world laughs, kindness never fails." Malik placed his arm around her shoulders as they walked down the road toward home. Behind them, the last light of the sun faded slowly, leaving a calm glow in the sky. And in that quiet moment, it seemed that the whole world was whispering her name. The little girl who had once stood before a judge and said, "Free my dad and I'll heal you." Everyone had laughed once, but in the end she had done it. She had healed more than a man. She had healed hearts, faith, and the world's belief in goodness itself.